Language allows us to convey meaning. It seems like such an obvious and simple thing to say, but it turns out that this obvious fact is loaded with difficult questions. For example, it invites the question regarding the more basic function of language. Is it more for thought or is it more for communication? Let's see. Sometimes we have thoughts. Well, actually, it's difficult not to have a thought. But for now, take this simple thought. This rock means a lot to me. While this guy could just have a warm, fuzzy feeling when looking at this rock, he can also think it as a rational thought. And he can tell this thought to anyone that crosses his ways. So humans use language to convey their thoughts. Language mediates between thought and communication. It is the necessary link. We can't read each other's minds without it. We do need language for that. Now, there are aspects of language that are dedicated to the expression of thought, or maybe even for thought itself. And a lot of the study of language and how it works is dedicated to this relation, the relation between language and thought. Some think that this relation is somehow privileged, like that language is primarily a vehicle for thought, and that communication is only one possible road along which language can take thought. But there are also aspects of language that are dedicated to regulating the communication of these thoughts. And people also study these aspects of language, and some think that this relation is the privileged one, like that language is primarily a vehicle for communication, and that thought is something that takes it for a ride, figuratively speaking. But the thing is, there are clearly aspects of language used to express or build thoughts. But there are also aspects of language that are used to regulate our communicative interaction. So when this guy says man at the end of his sentence, this rock means a lot to me, man, he simply addresses his addressee. Man here is not part of the thought. And when this guy replies, he introduces his response with, well, well, good for you. And it kind of signals that he's responding. So man and well here are not part of these guys' thoughts. But clearly they are part of language. No one would dispute that. But if we think of language as being purely a vehicle of thought, we kind of have to rip apart our concept of language. There is the language for expressing thoughts, like this rock means a lot to me. Its units are sentences, its meaning is something that may convey a truth, and its content is propositional thought. So we can call it propositional language or P language. And there is a language for regulating interactional communication. Its units are utterances, which may be bigger or smaller than sentences. Its meaning may be felicitous in a given context or not, and its content is purely interactional. So we can call it interactional language or I language. Now, the problem with ripping apart language into these two systems is that some words seem to belong to both of these systems. For example, here, well is part of a thought. It has served me well. And here, man is part of the responder's thought. You are a crazy man. So, if we divide language into two separate types of languages, then where do we put these two words that play a role in both? And there are many more, like well and man. It seems like we are better off treating I language and P language as part of the same system, as part of the same language faculty, a faculty that allows us to think in our human specific way, and at the same time, a faculty that allows us to communicate in our human specific way. So, language really is a vehicle for both thought and communication.